TIL. A Goldman Sachs report believes close to 300 million jobs will be lost to AI. It could replace a quarter of the workforce in US and Europe. Techno panic like this has happened throughout history every time an advancement comes along. They said that about ATMs, and how it would kill all the teller jobs in banks, and the opposite was true because it became cheaper and more efficient to run a bank, so they opened more locations and more teller jobs came to be. They said it about the printing press, and that's now heralded as one of the great advancements. They said it about the horseless carriage when it came to be. Same with advancements in agriculture. It's just a small, short-sighted view of the world. There's so many other sides to this than a loss of 300 million jobs. What if, hypothetically, this leads to a world of creative pursuits and other business, since any grueling labor can be done by robots? This is a bit utopian, but it's not a zero chance that it could happen. Aside from that, more jobs will open up around the field of AI. No one really knows where this would lead. And if it was bad for our civilization, it would become outlawed. Rich people don't get rich without others at least making some money to pay them. Don't drink the fair-colored Kool-Aid. One thing I don't understand is, hypothetically AI replaces 300 million jobs, how are these companies going to make revenue if no one has money to buy their products services, since no one will have jobs? Economics 101 will always ring true: if you want maximum revenue, you have to have an extremely robust middle class with as many people with discretionary income as possible. TLDR: if PPL don't have jobs, they don't have money to buy stuff, thus companies don't make revenue. Regardless of AI, I would be happy if it were to get rid of foreign customer service call centers. I think AI would be easier to understand and speak to. I used to work for a mobile phone company in a call center when I was younger. The call center shut down eventually because they decided to move it to India. If you've ever used 11 Labs, you'll know how scary realistic AI voices have become. Imagine speaking to an AI customer service AI telling them you can understand them, so they offer to change their accent. What the current large language models are good for is making very convincing spam. So far every indication from these stories on AI is telling me that this iteration of AI tech is gonna be very good in a very narrow set of applications, but not doomsday, world-ending stuff. This is like those stories on machine learning from 20 years ago about how they might replace all these jobs. And while useful, it just became another tool some people use and not some revolution. Went to a Summer County fair yesterday and they refused all cash and it was only card or phone. I saw that this shut out a whole bunch of PPL. Just like AI will. There is always another door open whenever you run into one that's closed. There will very likely be a second tier of society who barters and trades, uses cash, still does manual labor and relies on face-to-face trust networks and still functions just fine, at least for another couple hundred years. AI is about as smart as the person deciding to use it. It's just better at gathering information. Therefore, if you have an idiot, because you cut the people capable of understanding, that is using the AI to try and figure out your problems, you're gonna end up with a lot more problems than you would have by just keeping the capable people. If that takes down corporate entities, then so be it. They weren't managed correctly in the first place. Don't you just love that under capitalism, the improved productivity is hoarded by the wealthy and leaves the working class to fight amongst themselves? Like we could have actually had a world where people work less hours and work towards meaningful improvements to society. Instead we have desperate people working to improve the numbers on billionaires' wealth spreadsheets, because if they don't, their children will die of cancer. I see things like this all the time and it makes me think about my own job. I make steel, and if we followed what the computer predicted we would be making scrap about 80 of the time. There are hundreds of factors that can't be measured accurately enough to make sure that your end product is in spec and the right temperature for casting. I think my job is safe for now. And then how many jobs will it create? AI needs human-generated content or else it breaks. If humans just stop working or get replaced, AI then gets trained on more and more AI content and slowly gets worse and worse. Will it replace some jobs? Yeah, sure. Just like cars made traveling much easier than on horseback. But it didn't replace 300 million jobs. AI won't either. This is why it drives me crazy when people fawn over shit like ChatGPT. The only use for this tech writ large, is going to be to eliminate labor and increase corporate profits. Same way I feel about some of these new studies about room temperature semiconductors. Yeah, this is a cool breakthrough, but it's just going to be used to make newer bombs and lay people off. Interesting that with all the technology we have developed since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, None of it resulted in massive jobs losses, and yet AI is somehow going to magically do this. It's only going to cost jobs. It's not going to result in any new jobs. Yeah, sure. They are guessing and not doing it particularly well. Under a socialist economy, this whole AI shit would be a breakthrough of unprecedented progress. Millions would have been able to labor less, but we live under capitalism where all that means is that there are less peasants that the lords have to pay, so more money for them. To hell with the peasants who lose their jobs. Mostly management jobs and phone lines in my industry. I already prefer asking AI about career advice over my manager, and once we can train an AI on internal documents to eliminate asking management where to look to see what the company holidays are and where the documents are for an obscure situation. Well, it won't cost us those jobs. It will just move the workforce into new industries. Our economies are built on consumers. No consumers, no money. We will all be okay, lol. Just some of the less desirable, more basic jobs will become automated. Or Skynet will take over. One of the two. Lol, I do customer service and they introduced an AI bot that generates a reply based of our previous replies. Lol, so those days are numbered, but that's not what I wanted to do anyways. Moving into a sales positions hopefully, but who know how much safer that is. Lol, good luck folks. Saw a report that claimed 20 million US jobs just in driving things on the ground, trucks, taxis, trains, etc. That's 20 million jobs down the tubes when self-driving cars get here. And we have all the hardware we need to implement it. Just gotta develop the software. That's a profoundly bold statement from a bunch of fucknuts. Lots of people are smart, and lots of people have access to data and analytical software. If you're half smart, you would never say something like this publicly. You'd trade silently. This is stupid. Fuck you. 300 million is almost the total combined workforces of both the US and the Eurozone. I think total is like 375 million. Someone's numbers are off. 300 million is a lot more than 25. And I'm sure all that AI productivity's value will be fairly distributed. I really can't see this. If no one is earning a disposable income, they have no business model. There is no one to buy their goods. And that includes banks. No one has money for savings insurance who can afford it, let alone have something to insure. And yet we still won't get to be our universal healthcare because a few billionaires creeping ever closer to becoming trillionaires is far more important than letting poor folks have healthcare and food and homes and general stability in their lives. Can very well see the gap between haves and have-nots widening. Billionaire replacing their lazy workforce that can only work 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, and needs days off for their own lives, with algorithms that won't make such excuses. I work at a company that advertises AI and my job is validating the output. It's total ass. No longer worried about AI. If anything, it's confirmed my suspicion that AI creates a need for more jobs with the amount of shit it puts out. Ha 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 ha. Maybe in a couple hundred years. Man, the AI hype train has got to catastrophic levels. I cannot wait to see CEOs in 5 years trying to explain away billions in wasted investments on their AI initiatives. If Goldman Sachs really thought this, why would they continue investing in any sort of share-driven company? 1/4 of the workforce suddenly unemployed is, in economic terms, a catastrophe. That's a massive, shocking economic loss. If AI is 300 million, automation has to be at least double or twice that number. You see how many people are doing routine, tedious jobs in overstaffed factories in Asia, and that is more of a threat than AI. I use an AI note taker at work now and it is fantastic. I expect we will see a lot more examples of AI being helpful before it's replacing our jobs. But give it another 20 years and I wouldn't be surprised. Oh boo-hoo! Our society is developing tools that makes our jobs obsolete. To the horror, you sound like the South Park episode where the people come from the future for work. They took her jobs. Oh no, there won't be enough youths to support the retirees, we are doomed. Oh no, the AI will be doing jobs instead of people, we are doomed. Guys, I think I see a solution. For a group afraid of the working majority having the time to come together to fight the oppressive minority, they really are trying to free up some hands and push them towards some Molotovs. We have a dedicated team in my company trying to figure out how to use AI to help us software engineers write test cases. Still can't figure that shit out yet. Our jobs are safe. This will be a crossroad as a society. Will they just be greedy and extreme haves and have-nots? Universal basic income where people can invest time in music and the arts, etc. People at Goldman Sachs know how to count money, they don't know anything about AI. This should take is as good as your average redneck hillbillies hearing about AI for first time. Surely we will use this increased level of automation to give people an easier life, right? Surely it won't just be used by capitalists to wring more dollars out of people? Yeah, that sucks for them, but there are a lot of jobs that people used to do that have already been made redundant by technological advances. This is just the next batch. That's a new global warming. The worker bees that survive global warming will be replaced by AI. Also, bees probably won't survive the global warming. I'm a software engineer. AI, as we are being told, isn't really a thing. It's way overblown and we are still nowhere close to what people think AI actually is. So you're telling me that a quarter of the world's productivity can be automated at the push of a button and that this will be bad for economic growth? Good luck when there's that many pissed off, starving, angry people. People are like 6 meals away from anarchy. Crime and rioting will be rampant, blah blah. This means AI can replace a large part of the government employees. The red tape of the government doesn't let their budgets get lowered. I'm not surprised. The catch is that open source AI should be developed alongside. Otherwise we don't know what they'll be training the AI to do. But may also mean new jobs and a productivity boom. Clickbait. The plow and the computer cost a lot of jobs too. But better jobs resulted. Just like self-driving cars were going to take over everything. We are nowhere near actually AI yet, but really cool and useful nonetheless. They said the same thing about robots. They said the same thing about Ford's assembly line. They said the same thing about the cotton gin. Goldman? Do you mean the bank with 56 trillion in liabilities backed by 500 billion in assets? I don't need to trust that, Goldman.